over the Jason Pelagics channel. I'm Jeff, and this is your SoCal fishing forecast for Thursday, April 20th. Quick look at our weather here. We're starting to get into some real springtime conditions. Temps in the 70s, almost 80 on Friday. So yeah, things are heating up. Maybe that'll help us out with our water temps. As we get into the weekend, we got a little bit more of this cloud coverage, and it's going to be the result of an eddy. So let's take a quick look at our chart here. This is Wednesday into Thursday. You got these northwest winds on the outside here, typical springtime condition. And as we move into Friday, you can see how we start to get that little curl right there from the Coriolis effect, otherwise known as the California eddy. And this thing's going to be off and on, so it's going to be really hard to judge the strength this many days out. It looks pretty light right here. That looks like a little more onshore, and then Sunday start to get a little bit more flow along the coast. So depending on where this eye lands is going to really determine on the strength of this eddy. Just to point out, like Sunday, it's over here. You got a little bit stronger eddy along the coastline. But you move later in the day, and this thing moves around to the outside. So we'll kind of watch it, see what happens. And then this is Sunday evening going into Monday. Again, where this eye lands depends on how hard this thing blows in your local waters. So where this thing is a little bit hard to predict. Sometimes it's on the front side, sometimes on the back side. Just kind of depends on the angle of the dangle of this northwest flow. And that's really all you can really go off of. But for the most part, this wind is really going to tear up Channel Islands fishing. We've had a good run of sea bass out there, but keep an eye on it. We'll see what happens. Temperature charts. Well, with some sunshine out, we finally got some real charts. This is our chloro chart, but let me go to a one-day sea surface temperature chart, and lo and behold, that yellow stuff is just above 60. So finally, some good signs of what we're seeing here. And as you can tell, the stuff kind of flows up from down south and comes up north. And I want to point that out because that is what we call the Davidson Current. And this is the typical springtime condition and really textbook of what exactly is happening right this moment. We have the California Current being pushed by those northwest winds. You get that Southern California eddy condition that we just talked about. The Coriolis effect brings that wind around, and what happens, we get those south winds along the coast, June gloom, but with that happens, it spurs the Davidson Current, and that brings the warmer waters from New Mexico up into the Southern California bight, and then eventually spreads out and works its way north. And as these winds die out, that water kind of continues to flow for a while. And that is really how our fishing season works. So just a quick picture if you didn't know what it is or how it works, but that's what we got going on right now. So we are just at the beginning of this cycle, and a good start to the new year. So don't get frustrated with those cold water temps. And although the fishing hasn't been excellent by any means, it's April 19th, guys. 4 or 5 years ago, you wouldn't even think about fishing for bluefin right now. So it's a good time to be alive for fishing in California, and I'm still excited for this year, and more importantly, what's good possibly to bring next year. So water temps, like I said, looking like they're on their way up. That's a good trend. This outside stuff is going to remain cold. No reason to target anything over here offshore. Tanner, Cortez, San Nick. This water is ice cold. It's going to be dirty, turned over. And if you want to see why, we'll look at the chart as well. And this is the result of those northwest winds and this really green water here. So as this current is pushing up, it's starting to get a little bit cleaner. And there it is. That's the edge of that current moving its way up. So, we had talked about this. It was right at the lower 500 last week. And it's continuing to pushing north. And those winds are going to help with the water temps. So we got cleaner water, warmer water temps. That's what we're looking for. So good start to the conditions that we're about to see moving forward. So hopefully things will be a little bit better as things come along. And with that, red tide that we were looking at last week, it seems to be breaking down and cleaned up really nicely. Last week when the sun was out, you could see it was just a little bit streaky off the coast, so it wasn't really too bad, which is really good news for us. So down south, you still have like see little eddies of dirty water coming off. That's just the current doing its thing. So those will all eventually break down and clean up through here, and really start turning on to more proper offshore fishing. So that's what we're looking for. Let's get to the bottom detail so we actually talk about some of these places and what's going on. We have the Channel Islands. As I mentioned, we've had some really good quality sea bass fishing going on. Channel Islands, majority of it is coming on those little fluke baits, tube baits, hookup baits, anything that mimics a squid. You don't necessarily have to have the squid itself, but majority of it, that's what's been caught on. It's a lot easier. You cast them out, drag them on the bottom, retrieve them real slow. They kind of look like a squid, and it gets the job done. So that's what's been happening, and it's pretty much a mimic of exactly what happened last year. So really nice grade up there. Has been like 40 to 60 pound sea bass, that's quality stuff, guys. And that's usually like a fish that's like at least 20 years old. So that sea bass program that SeaWorld and Hubs has been doing with the pins and raising all the juveniles and all the harbors in partnership with CCA is definitely working, and the study proves it. So make sure you respect that fishery because it is very, very delicate, and I want it to stick around. So moving down south, as I mentioned, there's no reason to target Nick. The water's been cold, dirty, turned over. That's a long drive into the wind. Nothing we're seeing there. Santa Barbara's interesting. It's in the cleaner water. No signs of any game fish yet. This is always a wreckers or checkers islands, bang or bust. So if you take the trek, be prepared to pay the price, and you might end up doing some rock fishing instead. But it's just the way the island works. When it's on, and I've had some really good days there, but nothing to show for it yet. So we'll be on the lookout for that. Catalina has been quiet after 3 days after the full moon that we had last week. Still a good run of white sea bass in there. I'm sure they're still around. Just people catching them, staying quiet about it, and that's the way I like it. So if white sea bass fishing is your game and you're in this area, Orange County or South LA, might be worth a look for you guys instead of driving all the way down south to San Diego, if that's something that you want to do. Further south, San Clemente Island, we still have some dirty turned over water here, and it looked like it was cleaning up. Still concerned. This is the 1 day chloro chart. This is still looking pretty green along the edge here. The other day it looked like it was cleaned up a little bit better than that. But we got some warm water temps in the front. So if I'm going to target this island, I'm probably going to be looking for one. I'm going to check Pyramid Cove by the caves for squid and see if you have a chance at a white sea bass in there. If not, you can find some halibut in the sand flats. There's a couple little areas in here you can look for. And then I'm looking as the sun comes up. I'm definitely looking along the front here to find some current and start looking for some yellowtail. No one's caught anything here yet. I am going to be on the water this weekend, and I'm pretty sure I'm outlaying what our game plan is probably going to be, exactly what I just mentioned. I'm not the charter master. I'm not the one who runs the boat, so it's still up to them, but this would be my best bet for this island if you're not going to target sea bass at Catalina. So this is still a gamble. If not, we'll fill the bags with some reds and we'll call it what it is, an early trip in the season. So, but that's kind of what's going on at the island. Moving further south, we've been seeing the bluefin pick up, and it's getting better. Still seems like it's a night bite. We are still finding those smaller fish. They're definitely the 20 to 40 pound grade. There's been a couple bigger ones here and there for the guys that have been fishing further south that just get like one or two. No like giant jumbos really. Most of the stuff, like I said, 40 to 60 pounds, maybe a couple smaller, maybe a couple bigger. and there's been a couple I think got this week, like 140, 160, something like that. So, but again, not like all the fish are not these giant ones. That's more of a later season thing. I did want to point out to a video I saw. We mentioned last week that there were some fish out here in the 302, and we told you that these early fish, they're very skittish. They move fast. They don't settle in. They're hard to stay on top of. And there's a guy on Bloody Nicks fishing Jay, and he was out scouting, doing his early season thing, and lo and behold, this is what he saw. This is the that fish that we were talking about here, and here it is. He's got a drone. He's using a Mavic Air 2, and he's got it rigged up with a 50 wide also to when these things settle down to like drop a bait in there, which I think is sick. So there's a lot of people have been talking about wanting to try this, but people are actually doing it. That's what I'm talking about. That's some fishing innovation here. So, but these are those fish that he was seeing. He tried casting jigs at them, couldn't stay on top of them, couldn't get in front of them. This is why I don't really suggest trying to chase these things, because you just have a really frustrating day. So they decided to skip all that after a couple hours and just maybe try and shoot it on the drone, see what they're working with, and have some fun with it. So, but as you can see, these fish are just popping up. They're shining, and you notice like really the birds are after them. The lower the birds fly is when the fish are at the surface. When they fly up, they're still looking around for them, just like how this drone is. And you can see these fish are really on the move. They're covering a lot of ground, and this is what makes this early season stuff really frustrating. And I try and warn you guys about it if you're going to try and chase this stuff in your private boat. So, long story short, they pop up again. Birds are on them, but just a couple fish. They're definitely smaller in size, probably 20, 30, 40 pounds. This is stuff that we're talking about, and daytime it's just not working. So most of these fish are being caught at night or on jigs. Nighttime, they see the lights, they come up a little bit, drop jigs on their heads, and they're biting. And in particular, it's the smaller fish or smaller jigs, man. They can't fit that 400-gram one in their mouth. They'll just dog bone it right across the front. So they're never going to get the hooks in the mouth. So stick to the smaller jigs, flat falls, Daiwa SKs. If you need a heavier jig, the HD, or what they call the heavy betties from West Coast Jiggers, is a really good jig for this type of fishing. And as you can tell, he's up here a long ways. So, but eventually you can see how far away this drone is from his boat. But I also like, this is another useful tool that you can use, whether it be spot patties if you don't have a tower. Put this drone up. I mean, you got pretty broad range to look around here. So cool tool, especially on glassy days like this one is. But yeah, just another thing you can try yourself. So I thought I'd share that really sick video, and thanks to Fish and Jay for sharing that. But yeah, so that's really what's been going on. Earlier in the week, we had some guys fishing down here to the double 220, 238, even inside a little bit, catching some fish. We saw, Jay at the 302, so that's really what he's been working with last week. Yesterday and today, some guys have been fishing this side of what I call the V. Let me drop back to bottom detail again. And this is really kind of like the split here. We had the 371. Then you have San Salvador Knoll. You have this little pinch through the canyon here to the corner to the 43. And then you have the proper Coronado Canyon here. And usually fish hit the 371. And this is always a good congregation area. They always tend to stop here for a fair amount of time. But then you kind of see them go west or they go north. So we'll see what happens. But as of right now, we're seeing some fish in the dirty water today up here. So if you don't see them here, expect you to drive yourself a little bit further south. I'd still check the 390. Come as west as across. That we know this whole area is really what we've been seeing as far as activity. And if you're a private boat, you're going to have some ground to cover for early season. Again, you can use tools like radar for spotting birds. You can use binoculars. You're going to have to use a lot of tools But when that fog comes in, sometimes you can have those tools and it's not really going to help you. One thing, if you do have available to you, is bird mode on some of the newer radars, like the 4G ones. 5 or 6 miles, you can sometimes pick up the birds on it. Or if you have your own radar and you really want to play with your settings just to try and target those things, make sure you write down what your nighttime and fog driving radar settings are separately from trying to mess with birds. And then, go in the harbor, find some birds that are around. They're staying up, and then try and tune your radar to actually pick those birds up. Write down those settings, and then when the time comes offshore, if you don't have that bird mode button, you can do it yourself. But it's going to take a little bit of practice, a lot of messing around if you're not familiar with. But this is the time to do it. Early season here, when stuff's not particularly biting very well, but you want to get offshore, scratch that itch, and have some fun out there. So that's all I got for this week, guys. Like I said, I'll be out in the water. I'll give you some firsthand footage and reports off the water from Sunday. And then I'll be back out the weekend after that, fishing on the Freeman with the guys from Bite, trying to knock down another gorgeous white sea bass. So we'll see what happens. But that's it for this week, guys. Take care. Cheers. Hey, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and check out our website and online store at chasingpelagics.com. And make sure you share the stoke.